All right, so submitting an offer on a property to buy a property that has a tenant in it that's being evicted. So this is coming up for me because I submitted an offer. My property management company that I own, as we're onboarding a new owner, right as we're onboarding a new owner, a gentleman, a name of Quadir, gained access to the property without the owner's permission or knowledge, without our permission or knowledge. So this gentleman gained access to the property. He's a squatter, um, and he's having to get out of the property. So now the poor owner is really getting stressed because you're talking about months and months and months of having some unknown individual living in your property, and it's a fuller, more recent rehab property, so it's a nice property. And this poor gentleman's just can't afford to keep the property anymore, so he's basically forced to sell. And the hurdle he's going to have, and that's what my offer is based upon, and it's a accurate offer from my investment perspective, because any offer that comes in should take into account several things. So, we don't know how long it's going to take for a fact, how long it's going to take to get Quadir out of this property. Today he has been very difficult, and he also, I mean, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of concerns. So you take someone such as this gentleman who actually has a criminal record, has been in prison for violent charges. That's consideration A. Are you getting yourself into a really dangerous situation? The second situation is that typically with an eviction, most commonly the individual goes to radio silence. So my property management company, we take a lot of time and energy trying to keep the dialogue going and trying to keep the tenant to submit any maintenance repair request, because we don't want a leaking toilet, something like a wax seal, a $15 wax seal, destroying an entire ceiling. And that happens because the tenant's not going to submit a maintenance request because they're being evicted. So, you get deferred maintenance. So where the tenant's just not submitting any maintenance request and they're in there for months. So there's very likely deferred maintenance. Every time we get in to a property where a tenant had to be evicted, there's a multitude of problems with the property. It has to restabilize through its repairs. And that's problem A, is the deferred maintenance. Problem B is you just have no idea, if he's going to intentionally damage the property. So is he going to, maliciously put concrete down the drains? Is he going to do something catastrophic? Is he going to steal the copper? Or, what is he going to do? We don't even know if in this political environment, it's a little bit difficult because he could have moved out months ago, and just never bothered to let anyone know. Could have left the faucets just running and could have left the property, and we don't know what's actually going on, what the actual liability is. We don't know if he has completely damaged the entire inside of that property, and if it actually has damaged the neighbor's property, and they just don't know who to contact. And then one day you're going to buy the property, you're going to go and check on it, and you're going to find out that no one's been living there and it's been damaged. Then the neighbors are going to see you and they're going to say, hey, my property is damaged too. I'm so glad to find you. So there's so many unknowns that when you put an offer in, again, you don't know when he's going to leave for a fact. You don't know, if he's going to be aggressive. You don't know if the property's going to be completely destroyed. So an offer has to be extremely low and has to take into account all those factors. And that's the problem for this poor owner. And that's what my offer is actually, what I gave him. So he's looking for offers from folks. And I thought, hey, I'll give you an offer as well. And I put my offer in. And it sounds like he's interested in my offer. Since he asked me if I'd be willing to go ahead and send that to him. And I think I will. I'm going to look at it again just to make sure. But again, it's an extremely low offer, and it's extremely low. And I encourage you to also take this into factor. So don't not put offers in on properties where there's an eviction. Just make sure your numbers reflect that. How long are you going to have to hold onto the property without taking an income? Your holding costs. How long are you going to have to pay the property tax, a mortgage if you need one? How long are you going to have to, deal with all these things? And it really, honestly, it would just amount to months. So your holding costs might not be that much to just hold on to it as much, as long as your offer reflects that. And then, of course, take into account the fact that you're expecting a certain amount of damage. That this property has not been cared for, obviously, because a low caliber individual is likely in there. I'm not saying everybody who's getting evicted is low caliber. I mean, life does happen to some people, but often bad characters do get evicted. So just make sure calculate your numbers carefully. This is how much it's going to cost to evict somebody. This is probably how long it's going to take to evict somebody, and I'm going to have my holding costs. This is the potential damage that is probably occurred to the property, and put your offer in contingent on that. All right. I'm just a humble Philadelphia property management company owner doing my very best to answer your rental property investing questions. As always, happy rental property investing.